Good evening and welcome to the Indiana University Cinema Virtual Screening Room. My name is Alyssa Brooks and I'm the Marketing and Programming Coordinator at IU Cinema. As always, we miss being with you all in person, but we're thrilled to have you with us virtually and we hope you and your loved ones are staying healthy and well. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that IU Cinema is built and operates on the ancestral lands of the indigenous people of the Miami, Potawatomi, Delaware, and Shawnee nations. On behalf of the entire IU Cinema team, I'd like to thank you for joining us for tonight's world premiere of IU 2020, a 4-year documentary project following the lives of students from IU Bloomington's Bicentennial class. Tonight's event is presented in partnership with the IU Office of the Provost and Executive Vice President. We're honored to collaborate with them in sharing these student-centric stories and thank everyone involved with this project for their hard work in making it possible. To introduce the film, I'd like to welcome Ethan Gill. Ethan began working for the Office of the Provost as a multimedia intern in 2015. He is the co-director and co-producer of the IU 2020 series and now runs the Office of the Provost Multimedia Department. Ethan graduated from IU in 2018 with a Bachelor of Arts in Media Production and a minor in theater. Please welcome Ethan Gill.
Almost 4 years ago to the day, I was sitting in the conference room, and this was our weekly multimedia meeting at the Provost office, and we were with then multimedia specialist Kane Spod Chang, and communications director Jennifer Purick walked in with this ambitious project about the class of 2020. You know, she'd been thinking about how to share stories about IU and the incredible work that different departments were doing leading up to the bicentennial. And she thought, well, you know, why are we doing this work? It's for the students. You know, this is to help them grow in immeasurable ways. So let's share the student perspective, you know, make something that's this unvarnished, honest look into the campus culture during this major transitional period for IU. And that's what us student interns did. We made and completed 12 stories, each story told in 3 installments. These incredible, inspiring 12 individuals have surprised us all. I cannot begin to tell you how proud I am of each and every one of them. And it's so great that now, in 20 minutes per person, you'll get to see these persistent individuals grow into the amazing people that they are today. Tonight, we're going to hear from 3 of them. We'll watch Doña from Anthropology talk about friends and mental health. Yash from the Kelley School of Business talk about his time learning finance, his love for sports, and mental health. Oh, excuse me. He doesn't talk about mental health. He talks about the friendships he made here. And Emily from the Jacobs School of Music. She talks about her love for violin and the unbreakable bond between a music mentor and a student. IU Bloomington's Provost Lauren Robel said, when I watch these films and see all these students' hopes, dreams, challenges, and opportunities come alive on screen, I'm inspired by this next generation of leaders. These students are clearly smart and motivated. They're funny and resilient, and exemplars of the genuine impact of an undergraduate education at IU Bloomington. College is a time of growth, evolution, and figuring out who you are and where you fit into the world. And what a great opportunity it is for student filmmakers to immortalize that change right on the screen. It's so exciting to share this journey with you and to hear tonight from 2 of our student filmmakers who made this come to life. So thank you. Thank you for being a part of these student stories. Thank you to Jen for envisioning this beautiful project, for providing a platform to student stories and creativity. Thanks to Cadence for starting this party off. Thank you to the 20 student interns who helped document this. Hallie J, Steph Sloan, Haley Semyon for helping wrap this party. And thanks to the team at IU Cinema for being such a wonderful collaborator. Oh, and a huge thank you to our student stars who invited a bunch of cameras and scrappy interns into their lives. And thank you to Lauren Robel, for leading a campus that every day leaves a lasting impact on students. Now, I'll pass the mic back to Alyssa, who will guide us to these movies, but sit back and travel through time and enjoy a series 4 years in the making, IU 2020.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed IU 2020 Part 1, and I'm looking forward to this discussion and to your questions. We'll start with a conversation between Ethan Gill, Emily Miles, and Garrett Goad, and about 30 minutes in, we'll begin answering audience questions. Please feel free to begin typing questions in the Q&A box at any time, which you can reach by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So let's welcome back Ethan Gill, who will then introduce the rest of our guests this evening. Over to you, Ethan.
Thank you. Wow. These people leave me with such high hopes for the future. Make me proud to be a Hoosier. Thanks so much for coming back for the Q&A. We have a lovely panel here to talk about the filmmaking process this evening. However, IU Cinema's crew has a very special treat for us this evening. Though they weren't able to attend this live event, a couple of our 2020 students still wanted to leave a message with you tonight. So I will go ahead and let those messages roll and let them speak for themselves.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for taking out the time and watching this. I just feel that my 4 years at IU have been great. I've made a lot of memories with a lot of friends, a lot of professors, and even the beauty of the campus. That's just something which mesmerizes me at each and every moment. I think it's been great being followed on camera for these past 4 years, because once you graduate and you look back at these memories, you cherish each and every moment of the life, and each and every moment of the pictures and videos which have been created with your friends, in your professors, classes, and in your regular day-to-day activities. I think once I return back to IU, once everything is normal for sure, then one thing I'll be most excited to watch would be the Little 500 race. I know everyone's really excited for that, but that's something which I'll look forward to for sure. And I just want to personally thank you all for taking out the time and coming forward to have a look at our life experiences, college experiences, and how we've created those memories at IU. Thank you.
Hey, I had to find some time to sneak away from work and record this video, but I'm at the assembly hall, and I just want to say that I probably couldn't make it to the live because I'm at work or on my way home from work or something, or just knocked out. Give a couple thoughts on my experience with the documentary. I appreciate that someone even nominated me to be a part of the documentary. Someone thought that my story was worth documenting and sharing with the world, and even though it didn't exactly go the way I was hoping it would go, I'm glad that Ethan, Cadence, Jennifer, I don't know. I'm glad that you guys all see the value in my story. And the only thing I think I regret not doing is being more open and sharing my struggles that I had to face, particularly as a first generation Black, child of migrants. And that's a particular experience that not many people would probably have a lot of insight to, but I think what I did was good enough. So I guess a few words that I can leave with you all that I learned throughout my experience is, you know, people might give up on you, but don't give up on yourself. Bye, guys.
I believe Yash is on a plane right now. And so I just want to say thank you to him. Thank you for your thoughts and safe travels. And to Doña, wherever you are in Bloomington, whether it's work or at home, I hope you continue to take care of yourself, because that's what truly matters. And I'm so proud of you, and thankful to have you in my life. All right. Well, it looks like we have 2 more faces on the screen with me. So it looks like we're kicking off the Q&A. I wanted to give a brief introduction to both of our wonderful people, because I think that they deserve it. So at least to my left, I don't know what it looks like on your webinar screens, is Emily Miles. Emily started at the Provost office in the spring of 2017, second semester of her sophomore year. Her main passion here was podcasting, helping produce Through the Gates, which is a podcasting partnership with the media school, while simultaneously creating the student-focused podcast, The Sample, or also known as the little cousin of Through the Gates, warm, useful, short. However, she kept a busy schedule at the Provost office, being the main producer of Doña's story and Kendall Gibson's stories across 5 semesters of production, editing installments for both of them, 2 installments per student. After graduating in 2019 from the media school, she's now the founding producer of the podcast In This Climate at the media school, hosted by ERI director Janet McCabe and media school dean James Shanahan. All right, and to my right, at least, is Garrett Goad. Garrett came to the office in spring of 2019. He had recently finished an internship as basically the one-person art house of Wonder Lab here in town, creating video content for their platforms. Garrett was a great fit for completing the films of Emily Leung and Broderick Balsley, who you will see in December 8th, as they're both sonically focused and musical stories. Audio and editing are both the 2 main roles that Garrett prefers the most. Garrett also led IU's gaming club as president all the way to his graduation, and offered a wealth of editing knowledge to side projects like the John Wick Conference by Arts and Humanities Council, and producing animations for podcasts and IU is home. And I also send my congratulations to Garrett for graduating from the media school as a part of the class of 2020. So Emily and Garrett, welcome to you both.
Hello.
Thank you. So right off the bat, how are you feeling just having stepped out of the screening room?
I am feeling deeply nostalgic for those years we spent together, and also so proud of those students and thinking about the others who are part of this project, this documentary. You know, they all grew so much over the years, and it's plain to see there.
Yeah, I hadn't yet gotten to see Yash's final video yet, so that was really nice to get to see that, since I recorded a few of the parts for that, so that was really nice to get to see.
So I just want to get this question, start off with this first. So how did you first find out about the internship? And what were your first impressions of the project when you heard about it?
So honestly, my good friend Abby Gibson was an intern with the office, and she said, hey, there's this great place, there's this great job. Why don't you apply? So I did. And actually, I think I came on initially to work on video photo, this project. The podcasting did come second. But
really?
yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I'm so sorry. Wow.
No. I mean, I ended up focusing on that, but no. And I remember being really excited about this project because I had never engaged in such a long-term, media production before. So it was an incredible learning opportunity.
Yeah, I met you, Ethan, at one of the media school career fairs. I had just finished my internship at Wonder Lab, and I was looking to get involved with some more people who also knew about video production, some bigger projects than what I had been doing before. And the provost office had a table there, and you were there with the Ronin, and you're the one who introduced the program to me.
Wow, was that in the solarium? Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
part of the IMU?
Mm-hmm.
I am just recalling that now. See, I'm like, there were so many people flying through there. I'm glad that we made an impression on you, because you've made a hell of an impression on our office. So thank you. Wow, that's crazy. And I mean, man, so for Emily, being one of the very first students on this project, you were setting the groundwork for other students in the future to inherit this work. So first question, did you honestly think this would make it this far? And second question, what did you find out about this project that was so different from traditional productions?
Yeah, so I'm not at all surprised that it got to this point. I mean, I knew that, from the beginning, the office was all in. The exact form, of course, changed a little bit over time, but I always knew that, we'd end up with something really moving at the end of the 4 years. And how is it different? I work typically on a like a week to week schedule, and I think like mostly in school I did journalism, so it was very rapid fire. But this was something where we had to keep thinking over the years, and I knew that somebody would inherit the footage that I created, just as I inherited footage from like Andrea Vega and some other great people who worked at the office. And so you want to keep that in mind. Somebody else is going to take this baby and help it grow. So
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, if you look at the end credits for each of these episodes, and also in the December program as well, you'll see the dates. I decided to put the dates next to the producers' names, since they were the ones who kind of spearheaded each of those stories. And it's so neat to see those moments when the baton is shifted, and yet how I'm so proud of our students, because you've all kept this coherent voice. You've all kept this story going in the direction that it needs to. But also, I think what's great too is that since we were students working on this, that you get to see this evolution of our own craft, and you get to see the stories evolve and get a little bit more polished and a little bit more experimental throughout those 3 installments. Because I mean, I to be honest, when I was getting started on this, I felt like I was still making a marketing piece, and it was a little rocky in those first couple of shoots. But then you start to build relationships with these people, and I guess that actually ends up being a good segue. So I wanted to talk about real quick. Back in 2018, the IU Cinema had played this unfinished copy of Robert Wide's documentary Kurt Vonnegut, Unstuck in Time. And this is such a neat documentary because during the 20 odd years of producing this documentary, Robert Wide and Vonnegut became very close friends. They went from filmmaker and subject to close friends and almost family, for that matter. And so for both of you, what kind of relationships did you find while working with the 2020 students, and also, quite frankly, the other student filmmakers? Garrett, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So, with the other student filmmakers, got to meet some of what I think are some of the most talented filmmakers at Indiana University at the time, definitely. And some of them I'm still in contact with every now and again. In terms of the subjects for the documentary, I got to meet what I think were some of the top of the class in their creative fields at the time. And that's just really amazing because I think there's a real chance they go on and make quite big names for themselves. So that'll be as an anecdote, I'm looking forward to that moment in the future where I can talk about, yeah, I did this documentary for now famous artist in the future.
Yeah, and I was really lucky. I ended up working with, like I said, my buddy Abby, and ended up working later on with one of my best friends in the whole world, Sophia Mustin, on this project. But it was great to also, get to know all the other folks in the office, getting to learn from people. I came in with almost no video experience. So, I mean, every moment was a learning moment. And I, like Garrett said, like some of the best, very best people working in that office. The students taught me so much. I don't want to go long winded on this, but like, as you all saw, Doña is one of the wisest people I have ever met. And I mean, there were days when she would just like Facebook message me, like, hey, you matter, wishing you, warmth and light, that sort of thing. And what an incredibly special person to get to connect with.
That's true. That's so true. And I mean, the amount of overlap that happens with this documentary, all the different intersections of communities, because I mean, people find such unique communities here. And I think about, even though I was a theater minor, getting to work on Broderick's piece, just as an example, just how in depth and close you can see those relationships, but also stepping out of my comfort zone. And when I'm assigned on a shoot that maybe it's a story that I'm not typically following, those first few times when you're thrusted into a place where someone else is comfortable, but you might initially be uncomfortable at the beginning, is such a great way to learn about different people, different walks of life, and also just I think it helped me too, just as a filmmaker, because I was learning to understand that we were providing such great platforms for different voices, and to get to have that opportunity, I think, is an invaluable experience. So, as media professionals, we're constantly creating new content. We're moving on to the next project. We're prepping things for the next thing. We're trying to hone our craft each time that we pick up a camera set behind the editing station. So when you do look back at your work, time has slowed down or something, you get a chance to look at that video you made, especially this documentary. What effect has the series had on you personally?
So I'm going to go in the sort of technical direction. I look back at like Doña's first video, which I'm pretty sure was the first video I ever made. And it's sweet, to see some of the sort of creative choices. And I feel a warmth looking back and seeing like, where I came from, and being able to remember, the sorts of things that Cadence suggested at the time, and seeing those, like remembering those areas where like maybe I was just a little bit off. But I think that is part of like what makes me love this series so much, is it's so authentic. Like I don't think there's a lot of I don't know, pretend, a lot of like, artificial polish on there. So yeah.
Yeah, in terms of personal growth over the course of the project, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was mastery of the basics. Really wanting to, yeah, you can do all these cool creative edits and do these trick shots and all these things, but really, when it comes down to telling the best story, you want to get the basics down first, making sure you're capturing the key moments that you need to capture with good quality audio, with understandable video, and making sure that you're piecing that narrative together in a way that's most understandable for somebody who might not have the same level of familiarity that you do. So I think that was one of the biggest growth spots for me during the course of this documentary.
And I must say, though I was, the supervisor or the whatever, for you all at a certain point from 2018 to 2020, I still feel like I learned so much from you all. Like I remember when I was assembling the timeline for this program, because I had to slap all these things together into one cohesive video. I remember, I'll start with Emily and then I'll go with Garrett. I remember when I opened up Emily, your project file on Doña episode 2, I noticed something very different that I had never seen before in a Premiere project, which was your level of audio mixing. And the fact that you were the first person in our office, like everyone, I'm not trying to, shoot other people's work down. Everyone did a certain amount of audio mixing for their stuff and did great work. But when I opened up yours, I found that you had exported, because typically people drop stuff in, you've got the audio for one video, you've got the audio for the interview, then you've got the soundtrack. You had taken all of the B-roll audio, all of the shots of the scenes and stuff, and mixed it into one track. And then I had to go into Audition and go through that and, figure out these things and go into the different waveforms. And then there's a whole separate track where I love your ability to use musical cues to hit those emotional beats in her story. I love how you only used one soundtrack in her second episode, but it flows in a way that we are going into different peaks and valleys of her life. You bring in the bass at the right time, you take it out at the right time. The piano provides this little kind of motif to her friend Jessica. And all these things, it's like you don't notice it if you're not a filmmaker, but your brain does, kind of a thing. There's a famous YouTuber that I watch who says that. And I love that. I love everyone's attention to detail. And for Garrett, when I was looking through Emily's final piece, I mean, we just all watched it. What an emotional, crazy finale for her. And during all that, even through the misty eyes, I was thinking, wow, there was this one scene where she's nervous and she goes to see if Professor Fulks has arrived into the performance hall. And there's this one tracking shot that you followed where she goes to pick up her bow or put her instrument down. She goes through the back hallway and she goes into the backstage. And I remember opening up the project file and how there were like 3 different color corrections and how you had to what's it called? Rotoscope, essentially, or keyframe out all those different moments. But to us, we don't even notice that. But if you hadn't done that, it could have very well taken us out of that very tense moment. And so I think that that's just such a true testament to what people are providing, behind the scenes, and to make those emotional beats happen, and to really support those. So sorry, long-winded, but I just appreciate you both. So, okay, hold up. There's a lot of questions popping up in the Q&A, and I'm curious about that. So, Alyssa, if you want to find a good question to start with, I will say one more question with these two, and then we can kind of balance those between. So,
Sounds great.
Thank you so much. A large portion of documentary filmmaking is discovering new things, a new theme in the narrative, a detail that you forgot you might have captured in the moment, a quote that holds new meaning when you shift it around in the story. Was there a particular moment in your stories that you were editing that you enjoyed discovering or rediscovering?
That's hard to say. I actually watch these all the time because they comfort me. But there's this one part in Doña's I think second installment where she and her friend are like playing ring toss at one of the first Thursdays. And she's like, some days you're just L, 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 and, it's like miss, miss, miss. But she brings it around in the way that she so geniusly always does, that maybe that's not what's important, and it always sort of comes back up, and you deal with these things. And that's something that I've always loved.
Wonderful. Garrett, have you found something? It's kind of a weighted question.
Yeah, there's a lot of things where you like go back through some old footage and find a golden moment, or a moment that didn't quite fit the video that was very good. So it's hard to think of one in particular. And in Broderick's second episode, there's some really good interactions when it is with a friend interview, where they have some great banter going back and forth, the two of them. I can't think of a specific quote off the top of my head, though.
All right, Alyssa, thank you both. Do we have a first question from the audience?
Yeah, we have some awesome questions coming in. So first, someone is asking, through the filmmaking process, what parts of IU were you able to discover that you may not have otherwise ever had any reason to?
So we didn't see anything about this today, but filming for Kendall's videos, we went to the IU heating plant, like energy production plant. She went on a tour with one of her classes, and that was something that I didn't even know existed, even though it was right in the middle of campus. So it was really cool.
I got covered in soot in that. I had coal dust all over, and I wish we would have put bags on the cameras that day, but that's all right. I think for me, one big thing that I discovered, the very last, one of the last shoots I did with Jayla French, who we'll see in December, it was actually on my birthday, and we filmed in the psychology building, and they did this thing called electrokinography, but I'm just going to say the acronym EEG. And I loved that. I loved getting to see that this was a resource available to people. And I learned so much about dementia and how to read that with the work that she was doing. And to see how I use preparing people for the real world was just so great. Garrett.
Yeah, so we saw it in the videos we've just seen in Yash's video. There's the Diwali festival, which is the part where there's all the lights, and then it's the photo taken of some of his friends there. It's that part. So I was the one who recorded that, and the whole time I was there, all of Yash's friends were so nice to me. They got me. They gave me a bunch of food recommendations from the catering. They got me a plate while I was busy shooting B-roll. They showed me how you're supposed to eat Indian food, not using utensils, but using the pita bread. I still use utensils. But they were just so nice to me, and I had no idea that festivals like that. And there's a bunch of other moments too, both part of the documentary and not part of that documentary, that doing arts and humanities events that I got to see throughout IU's campus that were just amazing, and something I would have never been exposed to otherwise.
Awesome. We have another one from Will. He asks, did you see an overall change in the students' demeanor from their freshman to their senior year? And what development surprised you the most?
Confidence. I think I saw a lot of confidence come from these students. They were already coming in very strong, intelligent individuals. But I think IU really helped show them that, yes, they were that. they might have had some self-doubts, and they're still adjusting and learning how to become young professionals. But I think that they just really opened up in those last couple installments, and in a way that they understood themselves better, so that they could talk about themselves better, and talk about the world around them too.
I actually think I saw their certainty decrease, but I think that's a good thing because they were exposed to so much more of the world over those 4 years. I mean, just like all of us were, that you sort of learn what you don't know. And I think I saw them, start to accept new possibilities into like what a satisfactory life, what a helpful life could be, which was really cool and taught me a lot.
The impression I got was a lot more comfort in the field that they worked in, a lot more certainty, and that's what they wanted to do. And a lot of them became, friends with their professors, and realizing that your professor, who for some of the for like the theater department, a lot of the professors are working theater professionals, realizing that they're just humans like the rest of us and approachable and not unreachable.
Um, so we have one in from Olivia, and she asks, how did you choose the order in which to present these stories? What was the reasoning behind the grouping of the student stories together the way you did it?
Yeah, so there's two things. One, it was just technical completion. We wanted to make sure that the stories were ready to go. And two, I think because we have such a diverse selection of students that we had received from tips from like the Office of International Services or Studies, the Group Scholars Program, 21st Century Scholars, Wells Scholars. We wanted to make sure that we're trying to keep, if like let's say we do 4 programs, we wanted to make sure there was a balance between the journeys that can happen on IU's campus. And I think that this is such a neat pairing because you have this kind of overlying theme with these 3 of there is no correct path through IU. It's the path that helps you grow and become a better person that makes it such a great thing to be a part of IU. And so I think that that's why we chose this pairing. And also I noticed too with the December program, and this was something that I just found in the editing room, was that all three of those subjects dance through their 4 years. And I think that that's such a neat little coincidence in the picking for those.
All right, we have a few more. Someone's asking, what value do you think there was, of course, in addition to all the technical knowledge you guys gained as you gained this experience, but what other value do you think there was in having students film their fellow students rather than having IU staff camera crew?
Can I also say real quick, I just noticed that Olivia was Olivia Myers, and hello, she's actually the person who is responsible for getting me into the provost office. So I'm so glad you're on here, and she's the communications director at Finlandia University right now. So hi, sorry, can you restate the question? My bad.
That's okay, no worries. So I know you have been talking a lot about the experience you gained over the course of doing that, but can you speak more to other value there was in having students film their fellow students rather than IU staff camera crew?
Yeah, I can say, oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think there's a sort of generational sensitivity, like there are these very small cultural nuances from generation to generation. And something that I saw among my fellow interns was like, we tried to be really careful with this other student's time, because it's a lot to accept these cameras into your lives. And I think that we tried our best to not be intrusive and to really be respectful and work with them, which I think can be hard if you don't, share the same generational culture.
Yeah, definitely sympathy being a big factor with, when they're going through finals, you're going through finals. So what you get an idea of what kind of workload is going on and how stressful that can be, and not to push the subject too hard into an obligation, or understanding when they have to have schedule changes or things like that. So definitely that was a big factor, I think.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add to that. That's great.
Oh, okay. Great. All right. Steve asks, how did you undergo the massive undertaking of finding and selecting each of these stories?
Yeah, so partially stated earlier, Jen, when she was crafting the idea of this, she had started reaching out to different departments and programs around the campus. Well, and it was also what sparked it was she had just seen Boyhood at the IU Cinema. She was like, oh, let's do that, but with students. And so she pitched this to OIS, to OVP DEMA, to the Wells Scholars Program, a lot of different scholarship programs, actually. And then also, we happen to have the first, or the start of the engineering program here, the same year that the class of 2020 started their undergraduate careers. So we were like, oh, we should definitely ask them, because you get to see a department grow in its infancy. We start Aiden's video inside the geology building because they weren't done building the Luddy Hall yet for their program. And so really just asking those different departments, is there one or two star students that really stuck out to you, maybe in their application, maybe in a summer visit, maybe because the group scholars, they come in the summer before, like who really stuck out from the class, and who would be willing to volunteer for such an intensive project. And Jen also went into this knowing that we might not keep all 12. There might be some that just say like, I need to step away, or like, I just don't feel like being a part of this project. But it's crazy and so great that we got to keep all 12 and get to wrap up all 12 stories.
Yeah. Jillian was curious, and she complimented all of you on how beautifully shot all these stories were, and she wanted to know about how many hours of footage that you have in total.
It's about, I'm gonna just kind of guesstimate like 250 hours, but I can for certain say it's 16 terabytes of data. Yeah.
All right. Stephen asks, Emily and Garrett, would you talk more about how participating in this project has changed each of you, maybe changed your direction as we've watched their direction change over the course of their journey at IU?
You can go first on this one, Garrett, if you want.
Okay. Well, one thing is it gave me a huge appreciation for the art form of documentary. I wasn't like too big into documentaries before this, but doing the project, I've definitely become what I think is a big documentary buff. I love documentaries now, and it's been amazing to work on a project of such large scale, and it really, in terms of developing skills, changes how I think about the production project, the production process, in terms of how decision A at the beginning before anything shot can affect, decision Z at the end of the editing line. And that's something that is difficult to get working in other small ways on like student films where maybe you're only doing one part of the production process, one thing specifically, just like recording audio or something. When you're part of the whole process, you see how a chain, a decision at the beginning can ripple through, and where you might want to make adjustments so that you can have the final product that you want to have, and how to begin thinking about that final product before you even have the materials for it.
Yeah, I'm of the school of thought that you can't understand ethics until you've had to like work through um, ethical dilemmas in media production. And that's something that comes up all the time, and no matter what media you're doing, but in a special way in this long term sort of documentary. I touched on the sort of investment that it takes from these students to like let us into their lives. And, there were times when, we really had to like sit down and think like, how hard do we push for, this shoot, or like, what do we use in this video? Because it's all really tricky ethical territory. And I think like there was so much learning and so much good conversation that went on in that office over those years. And I think that definitely it made me a stronger, like more ethical media person.
Yeah, I want to add to that point real quick. It is an interesting experience to be a camera in people's personal space, and to navigate that situation is a very unique situation to navigate.
Yeah, or even just setting up an interview in a what is usually a public space. I mean, there is a sort of intrusion to it. So tread lightly. Always ask please. But...
So Ava asks, if you were to do the project again with different subjects, would you approach it differently at all? What would that look like?
That's a hard one, because I don't know if I would do anything different.
That's a very valid answer. So
yeah, because it's like with documentary filmmaking, you just have to roll with the punches. Like you can't go into it with a full belief of a narrative. You can have some expectations. You can be like, oh, we should talk about this job, or oh, we should talk about this place. But the outcome of it, or the way that it affects a person, is all up to the universe, I guess. It's yeah. So the only thing I would do differently is probably just really be stricter about file organization at the start. Just because it's like, where'd that photo go? Like, that's the only thing. I would say that I should have done more paperwork, but but that's a part of being a student filmmaker and then becoming a recent professional filmmaker, is just adapting with that and being like, okay, this is what worked, this is not what worked.
All right, well, I'm going to ask one more and then I'll turn it back over to you all for any final questions or comments. This is kind of two questions in one. So having had your own experience as student filmmakers, what advice would you give to an incoming freshman? And along with that, what do you want viewers of this in general to take away from this project?
So I think it's something that I touched on a little bit earlier, but in terms of advice for freshmen, um, it's important, I think, to acknowledge that like you have no idea what the world's going to look like in 4 years. So I think it's important to like have hopes and dreams and all that, but to understand that like you don't know what you want to do because what you want to do might not even exist yet. And I think that I learned that over the 4 years. I think I saw the students who are part of this documentary learn that over the 4 years. Your world just expands. as you grow. And so, yeah, I would say just be ready for that.
Yeah, so in terms of what I think one of the biggest takeaways from the documentary series is how big IU is and how varied experiences can be. It's just every student's episodes are just so different and follows a different aspect of IU. There's really something at IU for everyone. And in terms of advice I'd give to freshmen uh, after being a part of this documentary is I'd say really a bit harder to do these days, but don't be afraid to put yourself out there, go to the events, go to the clubs. If you don't, if you don't like it, then you can try to find something else. Just like go to those different club events, say yes to the events your friends invite you to, and really fill your schedule, which is something I feel like even having a full schedule almost completely several of those years, I feel like I didn't even get to do enough, even still, because there's just so much to do. So don't be afraid to keep trying new things and keep putting yourself out there.
Yeah, experimenting to build off of that, experimenting is all part of, higher education. And you don't know if it's going to blow in your face or if it's going to, make the successful thing happen. And um, I hope that, if someone's considering becoming a storyteller, specifically, try it out. There's such a great opportunity for becoming a young storyteller and to hone that craft, because you're the people who help us escape from crazy things, or you're the people who help inform us about crazy things. And um, when you have people who are aware of storytelling and are doing that, you have people who understand humanity. You have people who understand um, what connects people and what brings them together. So give it a shot.
Really well said, all of you. Thank you for that. So that's all the questions that I have to read to you. So do you have any final questions, Ethan, or any final comments from any of you?
Yeah, sure. So, Emily, and then I'll get Garrett here in a second. How does it feel to contribute to and have a legacy at IU with this series?
I mean, I'm deeply honored, of course. And I mean, I feel like it was definitely a huge privilege to get to work on this project, to get to learn, to get to meet these students and meet the fellow interns in the office, and, you know, to create this thing that's going to live on. And maybe somebody 50 years down the line looks in the archives and is like, oh my goodness, look at what students did back then. And to get to be a part of like representing the present reality, I guess, that's really cool.
And I mean, I have this goal to pitch these films to, maybe a supercomputer on campus or something, to add them into an archive or a time capsule, in fact, for that matter. Because if you look at the 200 years that have passed of IU, it's so crazy to think about how much happened with IU just in the past 4. And the lasting impact and evolution that comes with the campus, I think that this is such a neat time to feature. We're living through a time capsule right now. Like, that's just very surreal to me. And so, Garrett, how do you feel having contributed to something sort of a legacy of IU? How does it feel to be a part of that?
Yeah, it's definitely really interesting. I mean, how often does something like this happen at any university? And what's this gonna look like people looking back in 20 years? What's it going to look people looking back in 50 years? What's it going to look back, the next 100 years? It's not, there's no way you can know, really. So there is a really awesome sense of mystery in that sense, and that you have no idea how we're going to look back on these things in the future.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting thing for you. I mean, since you are also a part of the class of 2020. I mean, when we started with this project, we didn't have any student interns from that class just yet. It was everyone, we knew was going to graduate at a certain point and have to pass it on to the next bunch. And so I guess, what was it like for you, trying to finish these stories? Because I kind of know what it was like for you, but what was it like for you trying to finish your film in the middle of a pandemic?
Yeah, that I think is going to be one of the most historical parts of this documentary series. Truly an unprecedented event in our time, that we got to capture parts of how the world reacted in this series, and getting to, in that sense, put a bit of ourselves in the documentary, also going through that experience of how things just changed in like a day, how drastically things changed, and how uh and that difference going forward, getting to capture the effects of that is, like I said, something, who knows how we're going to look back at this in 20, 50 years, who knows.
It's wonderful. So we might have already covered this, and you don't have to have an answer for this one, but I hope that one of the goals of this series is that people who are prospective students can see themselves in these students. Current students, they can see their community and be like, I'm a part of that. And then alumni can see this and see themselves in these students and be like, wow, that was such a transformative period for me as well. Is there a moment in this documentary that you relate to very specifically?
I think that, like, certainly there are so many, right? But something that I just keep thinking about, not even from one of the stories I produced, but is how Emily was talking about how for her it wasn't the institution, it wasn't necessarily anything like that. It was the people. And oh, wow, that really resonates with me because, when I think back about my time or my work with this, I think about all of the like incredible times I got to have with like Doña and Jess. You could see them cracking up like they're on camera. There was so much more of that off camera. Um, and like how much like pure joy we got to experience together. Um, yeah, I mean, it really is the people when you boil it down.
Yeah, I think that with both Emily and with Broderick, and with, I think, pretty much all of the 2020 students, we're talking about students who are really top of their class. But we get to see, even at that level, the uncertainty and the struggle to do that. People I'd consider, very successful in their college careers, they're still struggling like all of us, and they're still having to put in 100% of the effort to get the results they want to get. And that's something that really resonates, that there is no, the the Professor Folks quote, perfection is utopical. It doesn't exist. It's just something you aim for. That's a quote that really resonates with me.
I yeah, I don't know. I'm just so proud of you all. And this is just so great. And I really, okay, how about this? There's a question that we always ask in our interviews before we do room tone, if we remember to do room tone. And that's, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to mention? And I ask that because when we're making these documentaries, I can guarantee you about 50 or 60% of the comments in some of these happened because of that question, and happened because we want to make sure that this is real. We want to make sure that this is honest, and that it's this ain't a marketing piece. This is the student story. And so is there something tonight that we haven't talked about that you really want to make sure that people know? And yeah.
I think it kind of relates to exactly what you just said. And that's that, like, when you're creating a documentary, you have to have a narrative. You don't have to have a narrative, they're experimental storytelling forms. But, like, usually you have a narrative. And so you have sort of created this streamlined image of a person. And maybe sometimes you start to understand that person as that streamlined image, as that little box that you've created. But when you ask those questions and when you just like step back for a second and like watch and observe, like, people are always 100% more complex than you ever expected. I think there's a tendency to like understand people as they relate to you, right? And so I think something that's really interesting is to go, beyond what you see in these documentaries and see like sort of the fuller self of all the students. It was really a privilege to get to do that.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's important to keep in mind that we're seeing a very small fraction of what is even recorded. And that's a very small fraction of their whole IU experience. So while this documentary series is great at capturing the variety of life experiences a IU student can experience, it is still just a fraction of that. And to live it as something completely different. And if you're a incoming freshman, for example, it's something to really look forward to. Is you will not know what happens to you during your time in advance. I mean, definitely that's something that's true for me. Uh, I would not have guessed uh, most of the things that happened during my time at IU, and my time at IU was amazing, nevertheless.
That's awesome. So, oh, hey, a new question popped up. Um, could you see yourself doing another version form of this project? And if not, what would you like to work on next? I can answer that right now. Is that I'm so glad that I'm currently working on with our student interns a documentary series about the archives of African American music and culture. And it's a new way to look at documentary filmmaking because you're diving into the past. You can't film, you know, most of this stuff in the present right now. And learning, I guess relearning how to research, um, and how to dive into those people's journeys and to represent their legacy in like Garrett said, in a fraction of time. I think that that's so great, and I'm so excited to get this project out there. And yeah, and I think that you can still see evolution through archival materials as well. And oh, and also I will say too, it's very different trying to make a documentary right now because we're doing all of our interviews over Zoom, but then our in-person interviewer is on campus in a big open air space. And then you've got the crew 6 feet apart from one another, masked up. And then we're trying to, either borrow or make sure that we're in a space that has a big flat screen TV so that we can make that person on the Zoom call as big as a human and try and get that close feel of what it's like. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on next. Here, Emily.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I'm focusing on the audio now, which is just wild considering the pandemic conditions. Um, but something that's really cool is there's like no barrier to talking with somebody in California or like Panama or Russia. I mean, there's the time zones, but as long as you'll stay up until 2 a.m., no problem. Um, but we're doing a lot of work on, covering fights for environmental justice, and trying to, hear the ways that people are doing that in their own places. So it's next for me.
Yeah, I've definitely, and this is something I've developed through my time as an internship, have shifted more towards the editing and post production side of video making. One thing I did, this was this was during the school semester, but I did a kind of not necessarily a found footage documentary, but a compilation documentary of vlog clips that I had gathered during the first month of for like of the pandemic when it really started to kick off. And that was a very interesting project to work on, being just an looking for footage and editing. And it's a very interesting project to reflect on, seeing how vastly different people's reactions were then compared to now, and how different that is. Uh, Even though things are much worse now, arguably, than they were back then. Uh, but in terms of what I have for the what I'm working on in the future, I don't know yet. I'm still kind of feeling it out in these pandemic times. It's kind of hard to be certain of anything, but looking forward to future projects.
Well, when you need it, I will write you a recommendation letter, or I guess a recommendation novel, because you deserve that. And yeah. So Emily, Garrett, oh gosh, it's been such a pleasure getting to discuss this with you. Um, it's always a nice day when I get to see you. And I want you to know that you are appreciated and that we miss seeing you in the provost office. And the contributions that you've made to these stories are invaluable. And I think that people will continue to revisit and celebrate these stories for years to come. And that's in big part because of you and about 18 or 20 other people, and then 12 student stars and hundreds of people in the background. And yeah, so there we go. But yes, just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being the glue holding this project together throughout the many different hands it's been switched between.
Yeah, it's a weird trip. I was just we did a pickup shoot with Cortland for the December program because he started his grad program here in School of Public Health. Spoiler alert, but to look at the last shot recorded for this documentary, and then to look back at what I shot in December 2016 as a student, yeah, there's a lot of growth there, and I also learned what shutter speed was, so that's nice. So thank you both.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
You mentioned Cortland, so I thought to close us out, this would be a perfect time for you to give us a little teaser of who we'll be meeting in part 2.
Alyssa, you are wonderful and so right. Thank you. I hope you're inspired to go RSVP right now for the second program this semester for IU 2020, or shoot any other IU Cinema Live program left this semester. I think it's such a great program. Tuesday, December 8th, 7 p.m. We are going to play through 3 stories from IU 2020 and have another live Q&A. We're going to hear from Cortland Crenshaw from the School of Public Health, who dives deep into the brotherhood that he's found here at the Alpha chapter of Alpha Kappa Psi. And he's going to give us a great history lesson on Black IU. We're going to hear from Jayla French from the college, who studied neuroscience, founded this inclusive community, and continues to inspire women to pursue their dreams. And finally, Broderick Balsley, who dances through his 4 years in the IU's Department of Theater and Dance, giving us an inside look on what it takes to be a part of such a close-knit department. And fun fact, Broderick was the first story I was assigned to back in 2016 as a student intern, and Garrett edited the last installment of his piece, so it feels really good to get to share his final journey with you on Tuesday, December 8th at 7 p.m. You can head over to the IU Cinema site and register there. In the near future, we will have those videos ready for you to watch in your own time, if you want to watch it leading up to the event. And yeah, and I just exported the final cuts for that yesterday, and it is a crazy looking premiere timeline. So I'm excited to share that with you. Alyssa, thank you so much. Thank you, IU Cinema. I will leave it to you to close this wonderful event.
Thank you so much, Ethan, Emily, and Garrett, for an awesome discussion this evening. Thanks to Doña, Eliassaint, Yash, Agarwala, and Emily Leung for allowing your IU journeys to be captured on film and shared with us. Thanks to Provost Lauren Robel, Jennifer Purek, Cadence Bao Chang, and everyone in the IU Office of the Provost and Executive Vice President. I'd also like to thank the entire IU Cinema team, particularly Brittany, Jessica, Elena, Seth, David, Ava, and Will, who have all worked behind the scenes to help make this event possible. We encourage you to visit our website at cinema.indiana.edu to see our interactive virtual events and curated streaming offerings. And as Ethan said, join us on Tuesday, December 8th at 7 p.m. for IU 2020 Part 2. To all of you who tuned in, thank you once again for being with us. Be well, be kind to yourselves and others, and have a great night. Thank you.